Well, this is a real thrill. A man who really needs no introduction, Ernie Johnson, who is the face and the voice of Turner and TNT, and does NBA, does college basketball, does a lot of things. I think everyone knows the incredible voice, the face, the heart, everything about Ernie Johnson. Ernie, thank you so much for being with us. Honestly, it is a pleasure to spend some time with you.
No, Debbie, thank you very much. I'm honored that you would even reach out to me. So when I got that request, that's a no-brainer.
Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, that's a nice compliment. I have admired your story, your family story, your wife, Cheryl Ann, and your family for a long time, Ernie. You've been very public about your platform with your family. Could you share with us just a little bit about what your messaging is about your family, your son, Michael, and you and your wife, Cheryl Ann, and what you've been able to do?
Sure. I mean, I don't know how much time you've got, but I'll try to condense it. But Cheryl Ann and I have been married. It'll be 40 years in August if we make it. And so we had two kids early on in our marriage, and then we started going down the adoption trail. And so four of our six kids are adopted, and three of them have special needs. Michael is the one that most folks have seen because Jeremy Schaap on an E60 did a profile of our family, and a lot of folks got to meet Michael that way. And we adopted him from Romania, and knew that he had a lot of issues when we adopted him. Found out once we got him back home that he had muscular dystrophy. There's no cure for that, and so from about the age of 12, he was in a wheelchair, and there were plenty of Special Olympics events that I went to Michael with. He was, his communication skills were limited and that kind of thing, but he could drive a wheelchair, I'll tell you that. And so I would even on the days where I couldn't be there, I'd ask him how it went and how he did in the 100-yard dash, and he'd say he smoked some boys and girls. And so I always enjoyed going to watch him. And it wasn't just watching him, it was just watching the event itself and meeting the other athletes there, and the teachers and the coaches and the counselors who always gave of their time to make those events happen. And it was just good for your soul, Debbie, to be there and to watch that. And so we've always had a soft spot in our hearts, not only for adoption but for special needs. And so we adopted a couple other girls. We adopted Carmen from Paraguay a couple of years after we adopted Michael, and she's totally healthy. She's great, nearing 30 years old now. And back about 10 or 11 years ago, we adopted two more girls out of foster care in Ohio, and they are both autism spectrum and that kind of thing, and have special needs. And so in high school, they both did some Special Olympics as well. So I was able to reconnect that way. But that's kind of our story. And so, and I think what we all learned through Michael's life, especially, was that there's value in everybody. We don't all play by the same rules. We don't all have the same capabilities, but it doesn't make us any less. And so that's kind of, what has driven our family. And, we lost Michael 6 months ago. He lived a miraculous 33 years, because when you have Duchenne muscular dystrophy, the prognosis isn't good. And a lot of kids don't get out of their teens when they have that. And so we were blessed to have him for 33 years, and he was a shining light. And, it's we carry his memory around with us every day, and so again, when I see that Debbie Antonelli is doing something for Special Olympics, it's like, yeah, where do I sign up?
Oh, well, thank you, Ernie. I know it's it's got to be a tough time for you and your family with the loss of Michael, and what an inspiration, your family, you and your wife. And I mean, for me, I have one child of my three with special needs, and you've taken on a challenge of having four of your six. It's just amazing. Where do you find the resolve and the courage to be able to do that?
I think, we lean on our faith heavily. I mean, I think Cheryl Ann and I both know that these kids aren't ours; they're his, and he's entrusted their care to us. And I think what it does with all of them, and especially with Michael, who was wheelchair bound and eventually couldn't really do anything on his own, is it just puts you into a servant mentality. You wake up in the morning and knowing, okay, I'm gonna have to do everything for him today, and that's really, some might look at that and say, oh wow, what a challenge. And it wasn't a challenge. It was like, this is a chance to serve. This is a chance to put somebody else ahead of you. And I think that's always a good tact, that that if you put others ahead of yourself. And so I think that's how you approach the challenge. And it does take some resolve. It does take honestly, it takes some time where you just need to be by yourself, where you need to have a really great partner in this caring program, where, hey, I need a little time away. I just need to decompress here for a while. And that's why it's so important to have somebody who can stand in that gap for you, because it's tiring. It really is. And I would be lying if I said, oh no, it's a piece of cake, it's just like anything else. No, it's challenging, but the rewards are just off the charts. And again, it goes back to finding the value that's there, because it is there. I mean, I tell the story about Michael, about him being on a high school basketball team when he was in a wheelchair, because there's a coach, down here in Brazelton, Georgia, named Phil Beaulier, who was so taken by Michael's spirit and how he always loved to say, love you too, that he would, when he wasn't coaching and he was teaching, he would talk to his students, his able-bodied students, right in the middle of a class, and just say, hey, let's spend a few minutes. I want to tell you about this kid, Michael Johnson. And he said, I know you students like to wander the hallways and use a lot of sign language, and it's usually with one finger. And they'd all kind of look at each other and laugh. And he said, but let me teach you something else. Let me teach you this. That's I love you in sign language. And when you tip your index finger at the other person, it means love you too. And so he was teaching kids that. And it was just amazing to watch, because on senior night, when Michael was among those who went out to center court and was given a blanket with the Mill Creek logo on it, people cheered, and I looked up in the student section, and they were standing in the corner looking with their hands up like that. They had learned that. And that's one of the reasons that, Cheryl Ann and I look at something and say, we couldn't plan any of this. I said, but God connects the dots in ways we would never even know it. So that this Romanian orphan meets this basketball coach from Indiana in Brazelton, Georgia, and teaches a high school about love. And that's the amazing thing. So even though you can look at somebody and think, okay, they're not as able-bodied as somebody else, or that mentally they're not at that level, there's value to be found there.
I'm listening to you, Ernie, and I'm just thinking about how that servant heart that you have approached handling your family and sharing your message and your platform. I mean, I've never felt, I can't say 100% that it is tiring and it can be exhausting, and there are challenges that other parents may not have to face with their children, but I've never felt encumbered by my circumstances with Frankie. I felt empowered, honestly.
Yeah.
People talk about all the things that you're going to miss out on. You're going to miss out on certain things. Well, to be honest, Frankie is a college man. He just graduated from the Clemson Life program. He's got a job. He went to class. played intramurals. He was in a fraternity. There was a Christian fraternity on campus that wanted some Clemson Life students. I mean, he had the full college experience, tailgates, parties, socializing with his friends, going to class, which was really life skills classes, not the same. You know, a person with Down syndrome, living with Down syndrome, of course, there's some limitations, but we never chose to look at it that way. We looked at what he could do, not what he can't do.
No, it's exactly right. That's exactly right. And because if you focus on the other, you're missing so much. And I've had the same conversations, and you know, and I'll say this, Debbie, that look, in the last 6 months, it's been really hard because the house is quiet. You know, there's no sound of Michael's machines, that, you know, his ventilator and that kind of thing, and no alarms going off that you know exactly what to do and what button to push, and when he needed to have his lungs suctioned out and that kind of thing. And I think about the things that we all do without even thinking during the day. You know, you have an itch, you know, you scratch it. Michael couldn't move any of his extremities. And how many times he would just say, "Hey, nose itches," and you walk across the room and just scratch his nose. And I miss that. I really do. And you know, because of his condition and because of his needs, you know, Cheryl and I just, we adjusted our schedules and thing. You know, we knew we couldn't travel. We knew we couldn't take Michael on an airplane. You know, and we knew that there were certain events we couldn't go to because Michael couldn't navigate it or happened too late or that kind of thing. And so in these last 6 months, we found this new freedom, and we've struggled about feeling guilty about, hey, let's just go out for dinner tonight because we can do it, or you know what, let's take a weekend trip somewhere because now we can do it. And really there's some guilt, like, but then there was also, like, we look and say, this is just a gift Michael gave us. You know, it's like, I know you guys looked after me for 33 years. Hey, if you guys want to take a weekend, go. You don't have to worry about me, and I'm doing okay where I'm at. And so in that way, it's a real blessing, and he continues to bless us every day, even though he's not here.
I can't imagine the feeling of trying to feel like you're keeping score, right? I mean, you know, you kept score for so long because of what you could and were able to do with Michael, and now the sense of having that freedom. People try to pretend like they may know how you're feeling, Ernie, but there's no way that anyone can understand what you and Cheryl Ann have gone through. The effort that you put into what you say is to, you know, everyone has value. I have studied what you've done. I have admired, because you're a source of inspiration for parents like you and Cheryl Ann are inspiring for me and my husband, Frank. We're not 40 years, we're 30. But yeah, you know the statistics out there about people that have parents that have children with special needs. Usually they don't last. You know, there's that divorce is a big part of it, and separation, and there's all kinds of issues that develop inside the family. I think if anything, Frankie has given us this unique bond that we all share. Even my older son, Joey, my younger son, Patrick, I think they're going to be great men because of what they've been able to experience with Frankie, the good and the bad that comes with it.
Yeah, without question. No, right? And you know what, and our, look, the first two children we had, Eric and Maggie, and Carmen also, who, you know, we adopted from South America, were just the greatest siblings that Michael and Ashley and Allison could have, because they are so caring. I mean, when Michael used to go to muscular dystrophy camp, Eric and Maggie would volunteer and to be counselors there. And it wasn't because they got to hang with Michael. It was because they had a chance to care for somebody else, and did it without even thinking. And as teenagers, it was an amazing thing to watch. And shoot, it led Maggie, my oldest daughter, to a teaching career, teaching special needs kids at Buford High School down here, about 25 minutes from where we live. And there's just such a sense of gratitude and satisfaction that comes with watching your kids grow up and watching the way they were impacted by Michael's presence and by just, you know, the special needs community. And so they have that heart for it, and that will be passed down as well. And so I think you know, Michael kind of got the ball rolling that way in our family. And now with Maggie's kids and Eric's kids, that sensitivity to special needs and to finding value will continue for another generation after that, and then hopefully another generation after that. And that's a cool thing. Look,
It's cool.
I
There's a
mean,
legacy there.
yeah, and there's a part of me. I mean, I was out. Ashley and Allison live in a group setting about a half hour from our house now. This spectacular place in
Awesome.
Swanee, Georgia, called Annandale. And I was out there today to visit them, and I've struck up relationships with so many of the residents, the villagers there, that, you know, we see each other. I get out of the car, hey, it's Mr. Johnson, hey, and we sit around and talk about whatever's
Right.
going on with in their lives. And I had a chance not long ago to go to Athens, Georgia, and visit a coffee shop there called Biddy and Bowes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with Biddy and Bowes?
Oh yeah, we have one here in Charleston, South Carolina.
Yeah.
They're franchising all over the country now. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's the greatest thing on earth, because a childhood friend of mine named Mike Langhorn, I connected with him somehow on Facebook. We hadn't talked in decades. And he said, I got this coffee shop up in Athens. You ought to come see it sometime. I've got a special needs son and he works there. And I went up there on a Saturday morning Deb, and it's sacred ground. I mean, you walk into this place and
Yes.
and every face behind the counter is just so welcoming, and everybody's got their job to do, and they put out this vibe here that's so good. You know, the world's in such a hurry these days,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody who was in line waiting for coffee understood how this place is run. And so there was nobody looking at their watch and nobody saying, hey, is my way? It was just like, they're just going to soak this in. And it was exactly that way for me. It was sacred ground.
They have so much pride in working and being included and, you know, understanding their disability so that they can be in an environment like that. That's the way my son is. You know, I don't think people realize how much fun it is to hang out with a bunch of kids that are Clemson Life students that, you know, I'll tell you what, a couple of weeks ago, the president of Clemson, Jim Clements, and his wife, I don't know if you've met Jim and Beth yet, but they are fantastic people. Their daughter is in the Clemson Life program. And one of the things on our bucket list, I say our, meaning mine and Frankie's bucket list at Clemson, was to play hoops in the president's driveway. And so I texted them and they said, come over. And so I thought it was just going to be me and 4 or 5 of the guys going over to the play. It ended up being 40 of them that came and hung out. And we just hung out in the president's yard in the driveway and we played basketball. And it was so fun. And it was competitive. I mean, it wasn't just like, you know, but I think that's the cool part of what we get to do is the other people that uniquely connect us through a special way that we know, because we understand the servant heart that comes with it. And so Ernie, you know, like on a lighter note, I mean, I can't let you go without talking about the set with Charles and Shaq and with Kenny. I mean, come on, this is like, you know, you're doing all this with your family during the day and then at night. Wow.
I mean, look, when you think about, I mean, I've been in that chair for 33 years at Turner, and it's what I call it. It's a get-to job, you know, not a got-to job. And because I think we've all looked at, and there are folks out there who, you know, when they get behind the wheel and drive to work, it's, oh, I got to do this. I've never had that feeling. It's always, okay, I get to do this. And I know I'm going to a job where before the day is over, I'm going to laugh. And that's good. I mean, I think if there's anything we all need more of, it's a chance to laugh. And with those guys, we laugh at ourselves, which I think is vitally important these days. And also, you know, we laugh at each other, we crack on each other. It's just like brothers hanging out, watching hoop for 5 or 6 hours. And it just, the things on that show just kind of happen. It's not like in a production meeting we plan, you know,
You guys even have a meeting?
I'm at the meeting, but the other guys aren't invited because we don't want them to know what might happen. And so, you know, we do plan a few things, like the other night when we dropped the ping pong balls on Chuck's head, you know, because we were doing our gone fishing segment. We gave him, for one night, we gave him a cooler and said, hey, we got your favorite beverages in there. He opens up the top and a bunch of these rubber fish are spring loaded and they jump out and scare him half to death. Okay, so the next night we say, well, here's another cooler. He says, I'm not going to open it. But we say, really, this is all good. He takes out a bottle of his favorite adult beverage, which is in there. There's a bunch of Twinkies, and so he's saying, okay, this is good. And then he pulls out a ping pong paddle, and I said, and he didn't even bat an eyelash at it. He just took it. I said, what's a ping pong paddle in there for? And he says, ping pong, fool. And at that moment, from the rafters, here come about 1,000 ping pong balls on him. And so we do plan things like that, but a lot of the other stuff is just organic. Somebody says something silly and we all climb on them. You know, somebody will put something on social media that we ride for the rest of the night. So no, it's just, it's the most fun you can have at a job. It really is.
You can see it, you can feel it, you can laugh alongside you guys every night, and you can learn something about the game as well. I especially like recently when you guys pulled the baseball team over from the studio, and Shaq got scored on because he got sealed on the inside. I was like, that is just hilarious. I can't imagine how much fun it is. And Ernie, I mean, your story is just absolutely fantastic. I would sit here all night with you and swap back and forth. I just think you're such an inspiration, what you and Cheryl Ann have done. And I mean, I'm trying to emulate what you do, and I'm trying to serve communities by, you know, it's not the free throws, it's the platform to share the message, which is you can make a difference in your own community. If you just do a little bit, you can help some other people that are in need, you know, to train and to compete. And we know they like to compete. And to organize, you know, especially coming out of the pandemic where trying to socialize and organize was so hard to do. I mean, you know, this population of people, it's even harder to be able to do that. So that's where our heart is, and that's what we're trying to do. And I'm literally in the driveway shooting until my arm falls off.
And I know with your percentage, it's not going to take you long at all to hit all those free throws. So I have every bit of faith and confidence in you.
Well, I appreciate that, Ernie. And just from one parent to another, thank you for what you've done and for how you've made a difference for so many families like ours, because you can, and because you get to, not because you have to. And I'm just going to say, everybody out there, if you haven't seen Ernie's message to the Alabama football team, it is worth watching multiple times. It is outstanding. And it is something that I think about in my inspiration from you.
You're very kind. I appreciate the kind words, but look, we all do what we need to do, and we all have different challenges, different roles, and again, I think just a lot of it is in your perspective. You know, I've had people who have met, you know, Michael before and thought, oh man, I wish I could spend more time with him, and it's like, see, that's what I get to do. You know, I get to be the guy who's right there with Cheryl Ann running point on this and enjoying those parts of life that can only come from caring for a special needs child. And so, you know, it's kind of, it's an unscripted part of your life. You know, we never planned on that. We never planned on, you know, but at the same time, we've learned that you embrace the unscripted, you don't fear it, and we've enjoyed every single minute of it, and we'll continue to.
My parents told my husband and I that we didn't get Frankie for something we did wrong. We have Frankie for something we did right. And that is exactly what I hope. There's many times where I needed to hang on to that piece of advice or
Yeah.
that counsel. Your family is beautiful, and your kids are so fortunate to have you and Cheryl Ann. And I'm so grateful for your time in support of our event, Ernie, and Special Olympics, and because we know what it does for families like ours.
I appreciate you very much. And I can't thank you enough for having me on. Let me just say, I mean, the only way I can boil it down, you're special. You're special. You truly are.